Welcome to chapter 3, the book of Exodus. Moses in the burning bush. And Moses was tending the sheep of Jethro. This is after he married the daughter of Jethro and Eothor in the Greek. Sephora had children. He's out there taking care of these sheep. Now, this was probably in the Sinai Peninsula. It says he was the father-in-law, the priest of Madian. Now, Madian, I believe it is different spelling in the Greek and Madiam with the people that lived to the southeast of the Dead Sea, the Midianites. Now, I think this is a different people here. Could be mistaken. But it mentions down here as we go on here, and he led the sheep, that is Moses, upon the wilderness, the Erimon. Hermit comes from that word. And he came unto the Oros Theou of God, Horiv. Now, whoever was writing this, Moses probably, who was given credit for it, because he knows it was all the things that happened, that he knew that this was the mountain of God. Wasn't necessarily the mountain of God that he went to originally here, but this is what he's writing, is this is where he was at. And it was someplace in the Sinai Peninsula, as far as we know. That doesn't really say, but the Sinai would be the wilderness for the people of Egypt. It would be between Israel and Egypt and the Nile. So, and appeared to him an angel of the Lord in a flaming fire from out of the bush. So, an angelos is an angel. If it wasn't from God, from man, it wouldn't be. It would be called a messenger. Same thing. But anyway, this came from God as an angel of the Lord, and this is traditionally, you could put a messenger of the Lord if you prefer, and appeared to him an angel, messenger of the Lord, in a flaming pyros, pyre, comes from that, from out of the bush. So he's there, and he sees this bush, and he's high up, and he saw that the bush burned with fire. So it's flaming and crackling probably, quite a sight. But the bush did not incinerate, as this keeps burning and burning and burning. But the bush is still there. And Moses said to himself, going by, I'm going to see this great vision. Orama. We have a panorama, the vision. A pan is all around, a vision all around. Orama. A mega great. Still use that word, mega. Megaton. Why is it that the bush is not incinerated? And as the Lord saw, now we have curios here. Now a lot of people would say, when would be in the tetragrammaton in Hebrew, which is transliterated into to English letters, or Arabic letters, YHWH, or Yahweh, Jehovah, different ways that people pronounce it, and it's been taught that this was his name, but we'll see that that's not the case. But as the Lord, and that is, here he's actually, this is the same word that's used for Jesus Christ, it's a title. He's the Lord. The Lord saw that he neared to see. Even the translators of the Hebrew saw that there was a title, and they didn't give him the name, they called him the Lord in Greek. So another proof that this is not the name. And as the Lord saw that he neared to see, that Moses came close, the Lord called him from out of the bush, saying, Moisi, Moisi. And he said, what is it? And he said, you should not approach here. Untie the sandal from your feet, podon, a pod, a pod, tripod, from that. For the place, topos, topography, places of maps, in which you stand is holy ground. So you're on a holy spot here, so you need to take your sandals off. And he said to him, I am the God of your patros, your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And so here we have God telling Abraham of who he is. And Jesus later uses this as that God, that when the Pharisees came and questioned, or the Sadducees questioned the resurrection, then Jesus refers to this passage here that I'm the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So Jesus says he's not the God of the dead, but of the living. And Moses turned his face, for he venerated to look in the presence of God. Seeing God, then he was a sinner, and he didn't want to look. He knew what he was. It was a shame, probably. And actually, he was a murderer. He murdered the Egyptian, and same as David, the two most important people of the Bible, of the Jewish part of the Bible, the Old Testament, that the Jewish people revere the most, are both murderers. And so he didn't want to look, but the Lord said to Moses, well, in seeing, I saw the ill treatment of my people in Egypt, and their cry I have heard because of the foremen that were treating them harshly, for I have seen their grief. So he heard their cry. Now, whether or not they cried out to the God or the God of their fathers doesn't say, but he did hear. And so, and then in verse, in verse 5, go back up here, it says here, with the place that you stand is holy ground. And 5 and 6 are mentioned by Stephen in Acts 7:33 and 34, as he relates to the Jews, the history of the Jews. So you can go and check Acts 33 and 34 and see what he said, pretty much the same, and compare them word for word, which I didn't do. Maybe I should have, but in the Lord, so he said he saw heard their cry, saw their grief. Hopefully the Lord sees our cry and our grief, and he certainly sees our faults and sins, but he has mercy and forgives the sins. We ask for the forgiveness and have a contrite heart to change our ways, but he hears our call for help when we need help. He calls for when we are going through a terrible time of being mistreated by people, like the African slaves that were taken from Africa and went to the United States, who went through hundreds of years of grief, of slavery. And the Lord has heard their cry. And he continues, and he says, and I came down to rescue them. Now, that's what Stephen said also. I came down to rescue them from out of the hand of the Egyptians. Now, I believe he's talking about going on to Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, the holy mountain. This is what I think he's talking about, where he's coming down. I came down to rescue them from out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to lead them from out of that land, and to bring them into a land good and populous. I came down to rescue them from out of the hand of the Egyptians. So actually, here, then that would be before Moses went on the mountain. So in what way he actually came down, as far as through Moses and Aaron, possibly to do something about it, and to lead them into a land good and populous, many, into a Gene land flowing Gala and honey, galactic, Milky Way comes from that, the milk, galactic, what is it called? In tower, you're not towering towards Melchizedek. Oh, I forgot. But there's a word. And so anyway, go into the place flowing milk and honey, and into the place, the topon of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, Perizzites, Girgasites, Hivites, and Jebusites. It's interesting how all these people were there. The Jews went back in. Eventually they get to there, and you never hear any more of all these peoples. But the Jews have been around for thousands of years because of God and putting it into their genes or whatever it is, that they would still stay somehow attached to God. It's like an instinct that they still would do that. Nobody else has that instinct that I know of. But the animals, I was watching these videos on these rat terriers going after these rats, and hundreds of them, and about 4 or 5 rat terriers, and it's their instinct is to just grab them and crunch down and shake them and then go after the next one. So it's in the nature of animals, but I believe it's also in the nature of the Jew to somehow he is still attached to God, even though he has done a lot of things. He has done a lot of things that God wanted to get rid of them, but it hasn't happened, and they are now back in Israel. And he continues, and now, behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me, and I have seen the affliction by which the Egyptians afflict them. And now, come, I shall send you to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So here we got the king, he's Pharaoh. And you shall lead my people, the sons of Israel, from out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to God, well, who am I that I shall go to Pharaoh, king of Egypt? Because he killed a man, he's wanted. That I shall lead out the sons of Israel from out of the land of Egypt. And he probably was a relative to this Pharaoh, as far as being raised in the family. It might have been a good friend. And I shall lead out the sons of Israel from out of the land. Who am I? And so he's doubting God here. It's amazing because in other places, when Zacharias kind of doubted God, then he couldn't talk until the baby John was born, John the one of mercy. So who am I? And God said to Moses, saying that, well, I'll be with you, and this will be to you the sign that I sent you out. And you're leading my people from out of Egypt, and you shall serve to God in this mountain. So when you're here, this is, once you get back to this mountain with the people, then you'll know that I was the one doing it. And so in the Sinai, I believe. And Moses said to God, behold, I will go to the sons of Israel, and I shall say to them, the God of our fathers sent me to you. And if they shall ask me, what is the name given to him? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, now important here, what is his name? The name. It doesn't say Kyrios, but the name. And God said to Moses, seeing I am the one being. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, On has sent me to you. So that is the name of God, On, in Greek. Now, I don't know what it is in Hebrew, but the one being. And that is his name. He says that's his name. The one being has sent me to you. And God said again to Moses, again, another time, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, Kyrios, that is the Lord, the title, God of our fathers, the ruler, the Lord of our fathers, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob, sent me to you. This is my eternal name and a memorial for generations to generations. So his name is On, the being one, or the one being, It's an eternal name, not Yahweh or Jehovah or Kyrios, Oon, the being one. And this is a memorial for generations to generations. But I don't know how they got off onto Jehovah being the name of God. It was a name, it's a word, a title, but it's not the name. And going then, gather the council of elders, the Gerusian, geriatrics comes from that, for old people. Synagogē is the verb for synagogue, a gathering of people. Gather the Gerusian of the sons of Israel, in the imperative. Go and do that. And you shall say to them, the Lord God of our fathers appeared to me, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. Sure, it's up here. Saying, in overseeing, Episcopi, an Episcopalian, the overseer, is the head of that church, I have watched you, even as much as has come to pass to you in Egypt. So he's going to go there and tell them that the God of the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the one who's sending him to them, and that they know who that is. They know he's a God, that those people had that, a God, the God. But, he said, I will haul you from out of the ill treatment of the Egyptians into the land of the Canaanites and Hittites and Hivites, Amorites, Perizzites and Girgashites, Jebusites, into a land flowing Gala and Meli. And they shall hearken to your voice, phonies, a phone. They shall hearken to your voice, and you shall enter in the council of elders of Israel to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And boy, when it goes in, though, it gets tough on these people, but God is directing him. And you shall say to him, Pharaoh, the Lord God of the Hebrews calls us. We shall go then on a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we might sacrifice to the Lord our God. Well, it was a lot more than that, but he says, I know that Pharaoh, king of Egypt, will not let you go unless going with a fortified hand, unless he does something about it. And stretching out my hand to strike the Egyptians and all my wonders, which I will do among them. And after these things, I will send you out. So it's a long process that's going to happen, that God is going to do. It's not going to be an instant thing. And I will give favor to this people, the Jews, before the Egyptians. And whenever you might run from them, running from the Egyptians, you will not go forth empty, but a woman will ask from her fellow neighbor and fellow tent dweller for items of argira ke krisa. Argentina comes from that word, and chrysanthemum comes from that, silver and gold and clothes. And you will place them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you will despoil the Egyptians. You will be taking all these things. There will be so much. Your kids will be carrying all the things that you will despoil the Egyptians with. Well, it continues with Moses and his reluctance on this whole thing to do what God says for him to do. And we'll continue with this reluctance and find out what Moses does about it, says to God, in chapter 4. And I hope you'll join us in the next video seminar. And until then, God bless.